videos on the internet, but nothing really explains how to tighten the chain on a SV650 very well. So I'm going to go over a specific example. This does not apply to all motorcycles, but this will apply to this one pretty well. So here you have the chain set up. I've switched this to a 14-tooth front sprocket and a super light, that's the name of the brand, I don't know if it's actually super light, rear sprocket. It's a gold chain, O-ring, that doesn't really matter. But the difference is on these, is the way this is set up. So on the back you have this little dial right here which gives you a couple marks of which setting you're at. On the other side, same thing. However, the problem with this is these actually float. So by float, I mean when it's even tightened down, you can move, or not tightened down, when it's loose, you can actually move this triangle piece left or right, even though the bolt itself is going to be in the same spot as the bolt across there. So the question is, with tightening a motorcycle chain, how do you get the wheel chain perfect in alignment with the motorcycle? One method that I've shown is you take your measuring tape and measure from this point, the bolt here, to the swing arm bolt. Now, however, the problem with this is you can put this here, and it does work on this side no problem. And we see it's at 20.5, depends on where you really select. On this side, where you're getting the measurement. On the other side, same thing. So we're going to go from that bolt to up here, and see now we have this problem where some things get in the way. It actually kind of bends a little bit. This actually isn't a straight. This actually isn't a straight line. It could be angled up or down, and 1 or 2 degrees is actually going to give you a different measurement than on the other side. And I'm sure 1 or 2 degrees is pretty low. Most likely you're going to be 5 degrees off before you really notice it. So what I did instead, what I've done, I obviously need to clean this up a little bit, but what you can do instead of measuring from that point to there is actually what you can do is measure this. And it's the same nut on either side. And yes, there's a couple different threads you possibly could do that. But basically what you're going to do is get a gauge, a digital gauge, and basically measure from with the outer part of this, not the inside because that's not going to work out, but the outer part. What you're going to do is measure from this point on here to the end of this point here. This, you're going to have a perfect measurement in terms of you're not going to be off angle or something like that. And what you can do is measure how many, well, basically how many threads or how many millimeters that this is going to be tightened down. And then once you have that measurement on this side, do the same thing, just upside down essentially. Grab, you want to tighten the chain, you can take just a regular flathead screwdriver or an Allen key or whatever you want to use. Basically, you're going to stick this in between the chain, between the links right here. You're going to push the chain forward, or the tire forward, when this is loose, so that this is not tightened when you're doing this. You're going to push this forward, and what this does is make the chain extremely taut, bring all the slack out of the tire, and now when the chain is actually tightened, that's when you're going to tighten down the bolt, or actually tighten down these bolts first, make sure it's all the way locked in, then tighten down this bolt, put the clip on. Now back it out. Depending on your manufacturer specs, the chain slack can be measured in a couple different ways. You want to basically measure from the midpoint on the chain in between the rear sprocket and the front sprocket here. You're going to take the tape measure, and essentially what you're going to do is just set the tape measure up. What I do is I go up, so I don't put the base one here because it's not very easy to tell where this is at. But we can basically move this up until you're comfortable and put, let's say, 4 inches at the top of the chain. So, looks like here's about right. And then what you're going to do is push up on the bottom of the chain and see how much it flexes. So, the manufacturer spec for this motorcycle is 0.8 to 1.2 inches, also 20 to 30 millimeters. Push up to here, and we can see it's about 0.8. So it's maybe on the slightly tighter side, but there also is this plastic guard, which does show some rubbing from the chain itself. I did switch the sprockets out, so it probably caused some of that. Maybe it's slightly, the 14 teeth is slightly smaller, but basically you're going to do that. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep turning this. There might be high spots and low spots on the chain. If there's too many high spots and low spots, meaning you can't get an accurate measurement depending on which one you use, probably time to replace the chain. You can also tell, depending on how tight you have to bring the chain to, it maxes out when the chain expands. So what I do is take the chain and find at the tightest point, that's where you measure. So once you find the tightest point, that's where you're going to take your measurement from and do and tighten from. Other than that, pretty much it.